piano, keyboard. Oh Lord, why don't we?
That's right. It's another super loaded edition of Nick Ferguson's Secondary Perspective. And I'm joined, as always, by my sidekick. Call us Batman and Robin, or whatever you want to call us, the Justice League. Mario Batanza, you can find him at Mile High Mario. You can find me at Nick Ferguson _25. And Mario, I know last week was a humongous week in the draft. We're going to get to that. Also, we're going to talk NBA playoffs, who's out, who's in. Of course, and let me toss this in real early. We'll get to it later. The Miami Heat, they're in. So
what a surprise! I don't think we've talked at all about this. Who would have thought that the Miami Heat would be going back to the Eastern Conference Finals? Who would have thought the Spurs would? Probably anybody that listens to this show, Nick.
Hey, listen, what I said it long time ago in the galaxy far, far away, that when everyone was talking about Kevin Durant, the NBA MVP, and the fact of what OKC was doing, where Westbrook's coming back from his injuries, what was happening with the Lakers, I said, you know what? There's a team in San Antonio that no one's talking about. And that's the San Antonio Spurs.
They never do, because they're such a boring team. And it's like their top three scores last night when they absolutely wiped the floors with the Blazers were all bench players. I mean, Kawhi Leonard looks like a top 10 player right now.
Well, I tell you what, we're going to jump into that because there's some good stuff that took place. Also, talk about the Clippers and Doc Rivers and controversial plays or calls that happened at the end. All I can say about that is ask the Green Bay Packers and the replacement refs. But here's a guy who's done it. He's done it well. He's played for a couple years with the Saskatchewan Roughriders in the CFL, but best known for being the Chicago Bears, number 26, the Runway, and he'll tell us why they call him the Runway, Todd McMillon. Todd, thank you for joining us, man.
Hey, what's going on, Nick? How you doing, man?
All right, I'm doing well. So let's talk about this. Now, the Runway.
Oh, come on. You got to really start it off with that, the Runway.
I have to start up with the Runway because guess what? There's a Khakis Gap ad out there somewhere. And if you look, as the camera starts to pan around, there's a guy. His name is Todd McMillon. He's in the Gap commercial. What's going on, Todd? Talk to us about Runway.
Oh, man. You know what? It's funny. Excuse me. Runway came. It was coming out the first year I signed with the Bears, and I actually, before the commercial, I did a Gap ad. It was a billboard ad, and I hadn't seen it at the time, but I remember the guys on the team, a couple of the guys on the team said to me, hey, you're downtown on the billboard. And I'm like, really? It's like, yeah, this Gap ad. And I just was new to the team, and I was kind of embarrassed it was out, but at the same time, I was like, hey, I'm on it. I'm good looking. I'm going to roll with it. so then it went from being a new signed player from CFL named Todd to Keith Burns. You might know Keith Burns, Nick.
Yeah, I know Keith really well.
Gave me the name Runway. One day at practice, he gave me the name Runway, and since then, Runway stuck. And it's funny, I always told my wife I always wanted a nickname growing up. I didn't want it when I was in my 20s, but Runway stuck, and the media used to call me Runway. Runway was my name. So that's how I got my name Runway, because during the off season and stuff like that, I dabbled in a little modeling here and there. So,
well, you can find him at, speaking of Runway, you can find him at runway26@gmail.com.
You're putting it all out there.
Why not? I mean, on this show, we give them everything, and luckily this is not our real talk segment because, we can really go in real deep on real talk, but I'll say that for another time. One of the biggest reasons that I wanted to have you on the show is your story, and I'll let you tell it. But the fact I want so many men out there, especially black men, they don't know what their number is.
Right.
They have no idea. They don't go out and get their prostate checked. And as I was doing my research, when I look at the numbers as far as what ethnic group has the highest number,
it's unbelievable.
As far as prostate cancer, it is the African-American community. And I know we all love our soul food. Big Mama cooks it up every Sunday, you know what? But at some point, we have to pull back from it. But I'll just let you go ahead and, enlighten the listeners on, your personal story.
Okay. And I can go on about it, but I'll make it pretty much quick. My father had prostate cancer. My uncle, believe it or not, my uncle had prostate cancer at the same time I had prostate cancer. But my father had it, and it was funny because he didn't let me know he had prostate cancer when he had it. It's kind of a stigma where men don't want to tell their kids or other men that they're having any issues with that area. And men in general, men don't want to talk about being unhealthy. We kind of figure if I have a cough, I'll just deal with it before it has to be that bad for me to go into the doctor, and still some men won't go into the doctor. So I think men in general look at that just as a whole, where we have to be that bad as far as a cough or a broken leg or anything like that to get us into the doctor. They don't go hand in hand. But for me, once I found out from my father, and actually my father never told me, I heard it from my mom, and once again, because I would say he was embarrassed to tell me that he had prostate cancer, and dealing with that area it was not a conversation you had with your son. And so once I found that out, I knew it was something I was going to have to deal with later on in my life. I knew it, and I didn't want to just let it go. And I knew, I wanted to be married, I wanted to have kids, I wanted to make sure that I prepared, and I prepared them by holding up my end of the deal, by getting my physical. And so, honestly, I always got a yearly physical. I got my PSA check, and I always got it checked on a regular basis. Last January, I was just going to get my physical. Right. So I had a new doctor closer to my house, and I told him I was 38 at the time, and I told him I wanted to get my PSA checked. And he was like, "Oh, you're so young, don't worry about it." I said, "No, my dad had prostate cancer," and I said, "You know what? I like to stay on top of things just to be prepared." And he once again he says, "You know what? I wouldn't worry about it until you're 40. I would just let it be." And I said, "No. Make sure when you do my blood work, get my PSA in there." PSA came back. It came back a little high. It was supposed to be a certain number, and it came back. It was supposed to be 2.0 or lower. It came back at 2.6. He said, "Let's see you in June." Came back in June. It jumped from 2.6 to 3.6. I got into a urologist, and we did blood work again, did a biopsy, and then June 20th is when they diagnosed me with prostate cancer, and it was a shock. It was a shock because once he told me I had prostate cancer, the first thing came across my mind was, I won't see my kids, I won't see my wife. I'm going to probably die in the next few months, and it's sad, but that's exactly the way I felt. And here I was. I played in the NFL, I played in the CFL, I'm in great shape, but I had cancer, and I was embarrassed. I was embarrassed that I had it. I was embarrassed that it was me. I was embarrassed to tell people. I was down. I was down for about a month until I got a swift kick in the butt from a good friend of mine. But it was real shocking, man. So I went through, did my consultation with the doctor, and August 20th is when I had a full prostatectomy, and I had my prostate removed. And since having it removed, I've had 3 PSAs since then, and I've been 0.0 on all my PSAs. This is the first year I had to do a PSA every 3 months. Right. Second year I have to do it every 6 months, and then third year I can go to once a year like everybody else after 40 years old. So, I can keep going on and on. I'm trying to make it quick for you, but that's pretty much my story as far as with when I was diagnosed and how I got to where I am now as far as that.
If you just joined us, we're talking to former CFL Saskatchewan Roughrider and Chicago Bear Todd McMillon. And for those who are listening, PSA doesn't stand for Public Service Announcement. It states that here that it's prostate-specific antigen. If you want to know what antigen is, it's a poison, foreign toxin, or other substance in the body that destroys the immune system. Now, I heard you were saying that your doctor was telling you, hey, listen, you're young, this is not something you have to worry about, but you still felt compelled to do it. And there's a lot of men that are out there, and I've been to a doctor before, and I've heard the same thing. Hey, listen, you're young. This is something that you don't have to worry about. And you normally think that the face of prostate cancer is another guy or it's someone else. But, you know, to see that you played in the NFL, you were healthy, there were no signs of anything going on, but you, knowing your family history, decided to change something about it. Now move us forward. You were diagnosed. How are you dealing with it now? How's your health now?
My health is really, really good now. It made me step back and actually look at things. It made me look at my diet.
Right.
It made me look at, exercising was never an issue. I always, like I said, continued to exercise and work out. But the number one thing that I did change was my diet. I lessened my amount of red meat. I've changed as far as it's okay. I realize it's okay to not to have meat for dinner. It's okay to go a full day without having any type of red meat. And now, believe it or not, you can get full off of tofu, and you can get full off of other things that aren't red meat. And so
tofu.
I never would have thought that. But when just because of having prostate cancer and now doing a lot of studying on different cancers and just cancer in general, it made me realize that, you know what, I need to change my diet. I need to pay more attention to my diet, and I need to pay more attention to the diet of my family, because it's not just prostate cancer. There's a lot of other stuff that is diet-based as far as, alerting cancer cells in your body to react. So now I've been on this campaign of just, not only am I trying to advocate prostate awareness, but a lot of the guys I talk to, I tell them about their diet and, red meat at a maximum 3 days a week, or their vegetables, different types of vegetables, juicing, and stay away from the sodas. So many things I try to tell, not just my friends, but anybody I come in contact to. I don't have a problem saying, hey, how you doing? My name is Todd McMillon, and you know what? I'm a prostate cancer survivor, because I'm trying to save lives, and I'm trying to make everybody aware, because there's this myth that prostate cancer, you have to be an old man to get that disease.
Right.
That's not the case. I was 38 when I was diagnosed, and there's another guy that I know that was a young guy that was diagnosed. Quick story, I'm also working with Prostate Cancer Canada, and they were telling me a story about a young man who was 42, and because his father had prostate cancer, he never told his son that he had prostate cancer, so he didn't know his family history. 42, he had his first PSA. It was sky high, married, 2 kids, never realized it was in his family. He was diagnosed with prostate cancer at 42, and it spread so far, it was so active in his body that he ended up passing away like 8 months later. And it's just, if he would have knew his family history, he probably would have got tested earlier. There's so much you could do to prevent this disease, because it is a slow-growing cancer. But once it gets out of the prostate, the capsule, then you have an issue. So,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Nick. Go ahead.
No, I mean, this is a very serious thing, and I know, on this show we like to talk, we like to joke, we like to have fun. We like to talk about sports and everything outside of that, but I really wanted to do this show, and I wanted to remind the listeners who are just listening, we were talking to Todd McMillon, former CFL player in Chicago Bears, because I think this is really important. I mean, you see so many PSA, meaning public service announcements, about breast cancer and all those things, but seldom do you see a humongous campaign about prostate cancer. And I want you to backtrack just a bit for me, because you said that your dad and even yourself, I mean, you felt kind of bad because you had prostate cancer. Why is it that you felt bad because you had prostate cancer?
I felt bad because of my athletic background. Playing in the NFL, playing in the CFL. I mean, we were in the CFL together, and that was humble beginnings. And being in the NFL, I'll be honest with you, being a model at the time and just, priding myself on my athletic ability, my good looks, that wasn't supposed to happen to me.
Right.
And it just wasn't real. It wasn't supposed to happen to me. And it did. And because it happened to me, and people have always put me, let's be honest, people have always put us on a pedestal because of our background, because we played in the NFL, because we played in the CFL, because we're good people. People kind of elevate you as far as your status. And now I felt like I came tumbling down. And so, you know, I was mad when my wife told people because I didn't want them to know I was weak. I didn't want them to know that I no longer was Superman. You know, and that was the biggest part was me getting over my ego that there was nothing I could do. There was nothing I could do about it. It happened. But I can help give other men the confidence to step out, get tested, to bring it up, talk about it, and move forward if they are having, you know, prostate issues, if they're having any other issues, that it's okay to get checked out. It's okay to go to the doctor. And, you know, that's kind of where I was. But that's why it was hard for me really to come out, Nick. It was hard for me to let people know that I had it. And it was difficult. It was difficult, definitely.
Well, Todd, we're approaching a break. I would like for you to stay on after the break. I want to ask you a couple of questions about this. And also I want to talk about, I know you probably keep up with the Chicago Bears and also the ever-changing rules in the NFL. And I want to get your take on, you know, what the NFL has become since you've been on the outside looking in with all these rules changing. Do you feel as though you would have been able to play and be physical in today's NFL? You're listening to Nick Ferguson's Secondary Perspective, and we're talking to Todd McMillon, former Chicago Bears. We'll be back with some more important information on prostate cancer right after this break. We're still talking to Todd McMillon, former CFL player and Chicago Bears, and we're talking about prostate cancer because I think that it is a very important subject matter for us to discuss on the show. Like I said, we are unlike any other show that you listen to. We're going to give you sports comedy, but we're going to keep it real. Speaking of keeping it real, Todd, let's back up for a second. You were talking about, you know, changing your diet, and I know the idea is red meat is the biggest culprit. What else have you added to your diet? You mentioned tofu earlier. Is there anything else that you can kind of throw out there that the listeners who might say, well, if I'm a big consumer of meat, maybe I can change a couple things in my diet by eating this?
Right. We eat a lot more fish. Definitely organic or not organic. I honestly will. If we do have red meat, we'll get red meat from a farm. So farm-raised beef. But once again, man, we rarely will touch red meat now. We more, or you know, get a lot of protein from our beans. And I never thought that I could go to bed and have a salad with tofu on it or something like that. That would be my dinner. And my wife, and you don't know, but I'm a big hunter, and so because I have a lot of wild game meat in my refrigerator, that's all we really eat. Is venison and elk and stuff like that, but that's most of my red meat. But like I said, I do. I'm trying to think, Nick. Like I said, tofu, a lot of beans. We do a lot of pastas. I know. Just speaking with my doctor, his main thing was he told me was when he did my consultation with me before I had my surgery was to stay away from red meat. He says there's a link between red meat and cancer that they haven't figured out. And that's just him talking to me. And he just said it's very, very important, cancer or not, for you to limit your consumption of red meat. And so that just kind of resonated in my ear. And I do. Like I don't mess with fast foods at all. I'll pack some nuts or some Brazilian nuts or some cashews or whatever it is just to take my mind off of that when I'm driving and I'm hungry. But as far as fast foods, man, I don't even touch that anymore at all. I don't make that stop. But going back to this one quick thing that you talked about, and I don't think people are aware of this. You're right. There's a lot of, and I'm for it 100%. The breast cancer push, I think it's great. They have done a great job with their awareness. But once again, you know, women know how to market, and they do a great job. But here's the thing that you wouldn't realize, that 1 in 9 women will have breast cancer. 1 in 6 men will have prostate cancer, which is crazy. Yeah. Because there's no awareness whatsoever for men, and the chances of having prostate cancer is really, really high. You take it to the UK, it's 1 in 4 men in the UK, 1 in 4 black men in the UK will have prostate cancer in the UK. So it's the numbers are alarming, man. It's just that there's no education, there's no awareness, there's no campaigns. And there is, but they're not making a lot of noise as of yet. And that's what I really want to do. I really want to make a push, because if I can save 1 or 2, or, somebody else can save some lives, well, let's do it. Let's do it.
Well, I'll tell you this, since we talked even before the show started. A couple of days ago, you and I talked when I first found out, and I was shocked myself, and I started to think that way. Say, listen, I need to go in and have some tests done. And I know the biggest thing is, especially in the Latin and the black community, is, I don't want to go and have someone do that exam, because, it's not a great exam that everyone feels or has a high affinity for, but you don't have to do the exam that same way. Yes. I mean, you can go into a lab, they can do a blood test, and then if something comes back, like you said, they do the biopsy. You don't have to worry about that old way.
The old way, yes. And I think that's the fear, is a lot of guys just think that it's the finger. And honestly, you can go in there and do lab work.
Exactly.
You can go in there and get the lab work done, and they can give you an accurate number. Necessarily, you don't have to go in there and do the digital exam. That's what they call it. You don't have to do that. You can go in there, request PSA lab work to be done, and you can get it checked like that.
Right. Very, very true, man. And I've known you for a while. We have some very humble beginnings. And once again,
the Landmark Hotel in Regina, Saskatchewan.
Boy, the stories we could tell. But once again, when I saw that, my heart went out to you. I was like, well, I didn't know that. And once again, you think, okay, well, the doctor is telling you you're not of the right age to even start to consider that. And anyone who's listening out there, even your guy Justin working the boards, just remember, you need to have that peace of mind. And I'm going to send you this, Todd. It's something when I go to talk to kids, I use all the time, and it's a book called The Way to Happiness, and it is a common sense guide to better living, and it has 21 precepts in it. And one of the precepts basically essentially says to take care of yourself.
Right.
And we always have to remember, as men, we are macho, we pound on our chest, but we have to remember there are other people that depend on us. Maybe Big Mama's depending on us.
Exactly.
Our wife, our kids. And we have to remember, we have to do these things. Maybe not for ourselves. If you don't want to do it for yourself, do it for a loved one.
Yep.
Or go out and do it. And go out and find out what your number is. And just like Todd said, so gone are the days of the finger. You don't have to worry about that anymore. You can go in, the doctor stick a needle in your arm if you have a problem.
I'm going to go in today then.
Well, we're going today.
Well, you know what's funny, Nick? Not to cut you off, but once I started telling guys that I had it, guys started running, my friends started running to the doctors. One guy said he's been having a tightness in his chest. He needs to go check. He went and got a physical. He hasn't had a physical in years. But it takes, somebody of, like I said, once again, because of our background, they kind of put us on a pedestal. Mm-hmm. So to take somebody like us to actually have something happen to us, other people will sit back and realize, if it happened to him, why can't it happen to me? And so friends I know, they started going to the doctor for other things. It wasn't just necessarily a PSA, even though they requested their blood work, but they started going in for the chest tightening. One of my buddy's legs, the swelling would not leave his leg. He went in for that. He'd been waiting to go. And then when he heard my story, he was like, okay, I'm going. I made my appointment, Todd. Can you believe that? Then they will call me to give me an update, which is perfect. That's what I want.
I tell you, I know we are men, and we do have that macho bravado, like I said, but sometimes we have to humble ourselves, and it's better to find out before something gets to a point where the doctor's telling you, hey, Jim, there's nothing we can do. And to me, that would be sorely disappointing to look in the face of your wife, to look in the face of your kid and your family, to say, well, here's something that is treatable if detected earlier.
Correct.
If we need to change our diet, Todd. I mean, I'm doing the same thing now, and I told my wife, well, let's have more lentils and quinoa.
Yeah.
And to be totally honest, as a guy growing up in inner city, I had no idea what bok choy was, quinoa, or lentils.
You ever see the Eagles commercial where the dude puts on the quinoa burger? He's like, man, this stuff tastes like cardboard. What we want, he's like, what is that? It's a quino.
I've never had this many veggie burgers in my life.
Wow. Well, I tell you what, Todd, sometimes we are put in a certain place, and being professional athletes, sometimes that's what it takes. We become the face, and we take on the face of a particular cause because we can drive people to it. We can drive awareness to it, man. So once again, man, like I told you before, I applaud you. There's nothing that you need to feel, look at yourself and say, well, I feel a little disappointed, man, because I know you inspired me, and I got to go out and get this test done. As soon as we get off the air, I'm calling a lab testing somewhere. Hey, take my blood, find out where my PSA is at this point, because before I had it done and my number was really, really low. But you got to pay attention to it because your number could be 2, but then it goes up to 2.7.
And because I need you here every week, Nick.
Yeah.
I lean on you and I rely on you. What is Nick Ferguson's secondary perspective if you ain't here?
Right.
Exactly.
That's true.
What's ebony without ivory?
There's no ebony without ivory.
Well, and definitely, if you have a family history of it,
yeah.
I think it's very important because it is your numbers, they jump. And I don't have it in front of me, but I believe if your father has it before he hits 60, the chances of of you having it is 50%. So my father had it before he was 60, and lo and behold, I had it. But they say if your father has prostate cancer before he's 60 years old, the chances of his son having prostate cancer is 50%. It jumps up to 50%. So,
well, I'll say this. Once again, listeners out there, take this into consideration. And I say this in my family all the time. Know your family history.
Yep.
Mom, dad, pop. Tell your kids if there's diabetes, if there's hypertension, blood pressure, whatever it is, tell your kids so they know that because prostate cancer can be a silent killer. You might not know until it's too late. So let's not do that. And I'm glad to have Todd on. Todd, before I let you go, obviously you played in the secondary of the NFL, and the rules have changed. Over the years, we looked at the contact rules. Now they're talking about changing rules with the field goal. When you look at today's NFL, could Todd McMillon, the way that I know that you played the game, could you have played in this game and been successful?
You know what? They're making this game so offensive-minded that it's almost not fun to watch at times. I mean, it's inevitable, the contact with the receiver. You're going to have contact with the receiver. There's just no way you can backpedal on a guy that runs a 4-3 without having some type of contact when you turn and go or when he breaks. And for them to throw a flag on just silly stuff like that, that drives me nuts because a lot of times it's just the play. It is the play. There's going to be contact, and the flag calls are unnecessary. I talked a lot of trash when I played, a lot, and the taunting calls, the excessive celebrations, I like a little.
Were you the Richard Sherman of your day?
I used to talk. I like to talk.
Oh, come on, man.
I like to talk. But that's confidence, man. Everybody has. Yeah. Now, Nick was quiet.
I believe that.
Nick was quiet, and it's funny because I know guys that played with Nick, and they say Nick used to come out there, put his war paint on, do his pregame ritual, tie his head thing around it. I did my checking on you, Nick, even though we weren't talking to each other a whole bunch. And they said you would always do your DMX little thing.
That was some DMX stuff up in here.
Oh, yeah. But no, man, that's just, I like to talk. That's just comfortable for me. That's the way I play. But the game is changing. And it's changing a lot. Even some of these tackles are definitely the defenseless receiver thing is, it goes both ways. We were always taught, you if you got an opportunity to take somebody out, you took that shot.
Well, and that's all subjective, too. I mean, how do you even judge whether or not a receiver is defenseless? I mean, it kind of varies from receiver to receiver. You think that a Calvin Johnson or a Demaryius Thomas is a little better at defending himself than one of these rookie cats coming in or someone lower on the totem pole? I mean, it's completely subjective. That's why I don't like the call.
I don't like the call because I can guarantee you 90% of the guys that when they launch to make that tackle, their eyes are closed. Their eyes are closed, and wherever you make that contact, it just happens to be where you make that contact. And it's sad. I feel sorry for the receivers get hit hard like that. But at the same time, I think you're going to see a lot of guys get hurt in the future because the guys are going to go low. Nobody wants to take that high shot anymore because nobody wants to lose a game check. Nobody wants to lose 3 games because this is their second warning. So I think it's kind of it's a touchy area because I think you're going to have a lot of guys with a lot more knee injuries in this upcoming season because a lot of guys will go and shoot low instead of shooting high.
No, let me ask you this question, and it's always something that's debated on this show and on other shows when you talk about DBs and wide receivers. And you're often asking as a DB, who would be a nightmare matchup for you? Now, I'm going to give you a couple of names, and either you can just call one guy out and you just be as candid as you can. Now, who would you hate to have to defend? The Cowboys' Dez Bryant, the Detroit Lions' Calvin Johnson, or the Chicago Bears' own Brandon Marshall?
Hey, well, being 5'10", they're all kind of hard to defend. I'll tell you this. If I had to choose one, Marshall plays very physical.
Yeah.
Out of the 3, I think Calvin is less physical out of the 3. And definitely, if I was covering Calvin, they would give me safety help over the top. I don't know, but Dez strikes me as a more physical, more he would probably be the one I say would give me the most trouble because he is physical on contact. But Brandon is also. I'm just going off of his body type, too. Dez is a little bit more muscular, a little bit more thicker. So I think he would be more of a handful than the other 2. I know Calvin is very, very tall, but Calvin doesn't strike me as a physical receiver. Maybe I haven't watched enough film on him, but he doesn't. Dez strikes me as very physical. Temperamental, but physical.
Right. Now, do you buy into all this, elite quarterback and the league being a quarterback-driven league? Do you buy into that?
Like I said, I think it's an offensive league now. They're getting away from you remember watching football when we were young? Yeah. They would pound. Walter would get 34 carries a game.
Not anymore. Not in today's NFL, you won't.
No, not in today's. Eric Dickerson, same thing. He was getting the ball minimum 25 times. They have gotten away from that, and it's an offensive-minded game. It's score now, score fast, get the numbers up, get everybody happy on fantasy football, get the fans.
Amen to that.
Hey, what'd you say?
Amen to that, man. I win my league every year. I'm all about fantasy football.
Come on, Mario. Come on.
Hey, man, if my running back got to carry the ball 45 times, then give him the ball 45 times.
I don't even think they allow running backs. I think running backs catch the ball at the backfield more so now than they did in the past.
Well, that's why I need to be a coach. I would just play. I would just know all my fantasy players whether they're playing or not.
You see that, Todd? He wants to be a coach, but he's only going to play his players to pad his stats.
It's like coaching would be dope, and that'd be like a nice little bonus, little paycheck. But if I win all my fantasy football leagues, dog, then we're in it.
Hey, Mario will be the guy outside the team bus congratulating his team player on the fantasy football team. Even though they lost, he'd be out there bigging up if he had Dez Bryant. They just took a shellacking, and Dez.
Hey, Dez, you helped me win by 2, bro. I appreciate that game-winning touchdown.
And Mario is serious, too.
Real
quick, though. Yeah. My team would never lose to the Cowboys. Let's just get that straight. So that whole scenario, that's erroneous on all accounts.
Todd, I'll tell you this before I let you go. This is what Mario would do. He would be the opposing offensive coordinator of one team, working fantasy football, and just like you said, he would get off his bus and go over and say, hey, man, look, great job out there. I know you guys lost, but, man, I'm killing this fantasy pool right now.
Oh, I can tell.
Yeah, that's Mario, and that's the type of guy he is. Ladies and gentlemen.
Believe that.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank Todd for coming on and sharing his story with us. It's very important. What I want you to do, once again, go to his website, runway26 at Gmail.
Actually, my website, that's my email. My website is www.anythingformyprostate.com.
All
And
right.
where can we find you on Twitter real quick?
You know, Nick would tell you, when Nick called me, Nick said, when did you get on Twitter?
Yes.
It's McMillon Todd. That is my Twitter.
Boom. Follow right now.
Follow me, Mario. Come on, I can give you some,
already.
I can give
And
you
also,
some
I know I gave you guys the Gmail account, but if you have any questions related to prostate cancer and you're trying to figure out what should you do or whatever, I mean, you can go to Todd's website, like he said, www.anythingformyprostate, but also hit him up at runway26@gmail.com. Todd, it was a pleasure having you on. I know I'm going to have you back on sometime again. Keep me in the loop on what's going on. I know we're going to talk, but stay tuned. We're going to get into just a tad bit of real talk, and you'll get a chance to hear Mario actually go in. You're listening to Nick Ferguson's Secondary Perspective, and this is Voice America Sports. You know, crazy things always happen when we go to break, and it's good radio. But we're gonna get to that because it's some funny stuff. But there's a caller coming in from Miami. Roma, you're on the horn in Secondary Perspective. What do you got?
How you doing there, young fella? This is Roma out of Miami. Listen, I work on the Port of Miami, and we have nothing but sport fanatics down here.
Right.
We've been following you for years, brother. And we're trying to figure out when is it that you are going to get into the coaching field of the sporting game.
Well, wait a minute. If you love hearing me, why is it that I need to even go to coaching? I'll put it this way: if an opportunity presents itself, and unlike Mario, I'm not going to take any fantasy points. But if someone came to me with the right coaching job and it was the right fit for me and the right environment conducive for me and my coaching abilities and my family, I would definitely take a look at it. But radio is fun. I'm enjoying it. And as you can see, we're having outstanding time. But thanks for asking that question. If you know anyone you want to toss my name out, toss it out there, but don't, toss Mario because fantasy points.
Hey, you need an assistant, though, Nick. I'm just saying.
I need an assistant who's going to stay with the game plan, not checking his fantasy points where we're on the sideline.
Multitask, bro. I'll make sure our game plan is all about our fantasy players. Everybody wins, including our team.
Yeah, well, I think it would be an outstanding move if we could get you into the field of coaching because we need coaches out there that knows the game from the inside out. Most of us sit on the sideline most of the time and bark out order and really don't know the pressure that's on the player out there on the field because they're not getting the – matter of fact, the coach is getting the big bucks, not the major money that some of the players are getting, but they got to know what it is to be on that field crashing heads day in and day out to make this work for them.
Well, Roma, I appreciate you calling and chiming in. Wade from Miami, appreciate it. But, yeah, I mean, I think when you look at coaching, that's one of my biggest things when I look at it on the outside looking in is I've watched the fundamentals just kind of deteriorate. I had the chance to talk to Brian Baker, who coaches with the Minnesota Vikings, and that was one of the things that we talked about a couple of days ago, just the fundamentals. And the fundamentals are the basic building blocks of anything. And if you don't have any fundamentals, you have nothing. But I'm going to jump into what we were talking about before we went to the break. And Todd was talking about he was runway model and everything. And I told him, I said, well, here's something that was interesting that he didn't know. But here's a fun fact for you. It's not Friday, but here's a fun fact for you. When we played in the CFL together, and this was something I used to do, I'm a brother of dark complexion. I understand that. I get that. There's certain things that I cannot wear. I can't wear like lime green or mustard orange suit.
Whoa. I think you would look good in lime green, Nick. That contrast, though.
Don't forget purple. Don't forget purple.
Oh, wait. Real talk, Mario.
No. If you make it so, then it shall be. If you're trying to say, I don't look good. No, brother, I don't look good in lime green. My skin is too light. You can do lime green.
Dude, I'm not trying to look like a box of Skittles.
What are they? There are no dark Skittles, Nick.
Look, I'll tell you this. Let me get to this point. So what I started doing was, anytime Wesley Snipes had a movie that was out, I would go out and support it, because I felt as though as long as he had movies in rotation, dark-skinned brothers would still be in the flavor of the month, because guys like Todd, I'll be sure, Keith Washington type of guy. You're competing with these type of individuals. Like, look at Todd. He's light skinned. Yeah, he's a pretty boy. He's got good hair. It's like, whoa. Look at me. Lord. So that was something I had to throw out there. But here's, Todd, since you're still on, you can get into the Real Talk segment. Real Talk, Johnny Manziel's speculations about joining the Cowboys, did it bother Tony Romo or not? Or was it the fact that, I don't know, the owner, Jerry Jones, who loves to be in the media, was just selling wolf tickets for a pre-draft hype? Real talk.
You know what? I think it did. There's no way, unless, I don't know, you just signed a big contract, there's no way each year as a player that you don't focus on the draft. There's no way. I can remember each year me and my wife would sit down and, it was draft focus, because you always wanted to know who's coming in to take your spot. Always.
Right.
So I think, I don't care who you are, you're still human. And definitely, I'm pretty sure Tony Romo was affected by it. Was he worried? Probably not. But he's human, so there's no way it didn't affect him whatsoever. No way.
Okay. Let me take it from here. Real talk, he was absolutely bothered by it, and here's why. It's something Nick and I are very familiar with, something that Nick started, matter of fact, called the Tony Romo effect. As long as they're not bringing in any other truly capable backups, I mean, what, Kyle Orton is really going to push him? No, absolutely not. But you get someone in here who has the kind of clout that Tim Tebow had when he came into the league, where no matter how good he is, people are going to want to see him play. He is going to pressure Tony Romo, and he's going to make Tony Romo choke even more, because we know, Nick, he can't handle that pressure. That's the Tony Romo effect. So was he scared? Absolutely. Tony Romo was pooping his pants when he saw that Johnny Manziel was still on the board. And when Jerry Jones didn't take him, well, then he just peed a little bit.
Even if he would have went to Dallas, Manziel is not just ready yet. I mean,
no, you're right. But it's the circus that comes with Manziel. It's the same thing with Tebow. Tebow was never ready for the NFL. Manziel's not ready either. But because he has this following, he's Johnny Football. He's a god down there at Texas A&M. That's why they would want him to play. And he's staying in Texas. Please.
Mario, you make me nervous about you take that fantasy football serious.
I'm going to get Johnny Manziel with my last pick, bro. You watch.
See what I told you. Now, moving on, the Seattle Seahawks are headed to the White House next week. While other teams will be going through OTAs, they're going to the White House. Is this still a big deal in professional sports to win a championship and go to the White House? Real talk.
Real talk, man. Yeah, it's of course a big deal. Nick, would you pass up an opportunity to go meet the President of the United States? Whether or not you voted for him, whether or not you agree with what he's doing, this kind of opportunity comes by, once in a lifetime, meeting the leader of the free world. Plus, we know the Seahawks are never going to win another Super Bowl for another maybe 20, 30, 40 years. So you got to enjoy it while it's happening. Let other teams worry about getting better. You're the champs right now. Let it ride, baby. Let it ride.
All right. Real talk. The LA Clippers and Doc Rivers were upset the other night because of what they consider to be a missed call by the officials.
I agree.
And then Chris Paul fouled Westbrook shooting a three-pointer, and then he turned the ball over. I mean, we have a game that's going to take place tonight. Could this be the end of the LA Clippers? Real talk.
Todd, you take this first.
They had that game. They had it, and that was a bad call by the ref. Oh, terrible call. Chris Paul, he tried to put too much on his shoulders. The foul, the three-point foul, I mean, what did you guys, do you think it was a foul?
Yes, it was a foul. He hit him on the elbow.
He just grazed his elbow. Come on, Nick.
That counts. That's called the foul.
Hey, LeBron is getting away with that all damn day, though.
Yeah, that's just incidental contact. Man, he barely touched him. Didn't affect the floor shot anything.
Incidental contact? Really? Let me tell you. Here's the thing for you. Chris Paul got that call because he is not a superstar. Mario just mentioned LeBron James. Maybe LeBron James doesn't get that call. Because
Chris
guess what?
Paul is the best point guard in the game right now. How is he not a superstar?
He's not a superstar.
He is. He's superstar status.
No, he's superstar status, but he's not a superstar. He's a step below some of the marquee players. Even Kevin Durant is higher than him. Chris Paul is not blockbuster. He's not. I don't know. See, that's the thing. I think it's too much of Cliff Paul that's getting involved, not Chris.
Hey, that was Cliff Paul last night for sure, man. Ain't nobody doubting that. Boy needs to get back to the office pushing paper.
He tried to do too much. Oh, he tried to do way too much. So, they got a game tonight. They got a game tonight. It's going to be tough.
Here was the thing, Nick. Was it a bad call? That's up for debate. Whether or not, it was one of those ones. Let's be honest. It could have gone either way.
Which one? You talking about the out of bounds or the foul?
Foul. But you know what? They showed the same thing, and like I said, LeBron was fouling the lights out. That 13-3. Don't get it twisted. LeBron was fouling. But they're not going to call it because they're like, oh, game's on the line. They're letting them play. That's good defense. It's good defense because LeBron did it. But someone else does is like, oh, that's a pretty blatant foul. You got to call that. And here's the thing, Todd. They wouldn't have fined Doc Rivers $25,000 if he was right. If they weren't trying to cover their asses, they don't fine him. But they're like, oh, we need to make an example. He's exposing us. That was bad. Now we got to punish him. So it was absolutely a penalty. They blew it. But here's the thing. In the end, the whole Tony Romo effect, we got back to it, Nick. You see what I did there? Yeah. Cliff/Chris Paul went on the Tony Romo effect. But it's not going to matter because it's going to be Spurs Heat regardless. No, there are no other teams that, look at the way the Spurs are playing. Are you kidding me? They are routing every single team that they play. Still nobody's talking about them. The number one seed, nobody cares.
But I'm glad you finally jumped on that Miami train to know it's going to happen. But just to backtrack just a tad, when we talk about the officiating in the NBA, and we've seen it, the Jordan rules when they came out, because you have superstar status, you get those calls, excuse me. And then you're a guy that if you commit a foul, the ref is going to turn his head and turn the other way because we can't have the best player on the court fouling out of the game. That's not good for TV. That's not good for advertising. And it's definitely not good for ratings.
That's the truth.
So real talk, that is the truth. And we've seen it happen both in the NBA, we've seen it in Major League Baseball, and, we definitely seen it in the NFL. Peyton Manning gets a couple of calls that maybe another quarterback don't get. Tom Brady gets a couple of calls that maybe another quarterback doesn't get because he's yelling at the refs. He's talking to him, he's in his ear. But that's what we have to deal with. That's what we're dealing with. Now, moving forward, we're going to talk about the Miami Heat, of course. I think the biggest thing going into this series with the Brooklyn Nets was the fact that the Nets won several games against the Heat in the regular season. And just like when we talk about another loop back to Tony Romo, and I know Justin's probably upset right now talking about his Dallas Cowboys, but...
Oh, sorry, not sorry, Justin.
You have to be able to perform when the game's on the line. The regular season is one thing. The postseason is where people remember you and you submit your name. So the Miami Heat, I'm looking for them to play that series against the San Antonio Spurs and be another possible Game 7. Real talk, Heat, Spurs, that's it.
That's it. That's all it can be, man. And we've said it from the beginning, Nick. It doesn't mean that's what I've been telling you these last couple shows, these last couple weeks. Oh, what about the Trailblazers? What about the Wizards? What about the Pacers? It's all well and good to talk about to fill space, but when it comes down to it, none of it matters because it is Heat and it is Spurs. Yeah. Real talk.
Well, I tell you, I mean, today, of course, was another spectacular show. I want to thank Mario, and you can find him at Mile High Mario, and you can find me at NickFerguson_25. I want to thank my good friend, my brother, my teammate, Todd McMillon, for coming on and sharing his story and being a positive role model for those who are starting their bout with cancer or those who need to find out more information. And once again, you can find Todd at www.anythingformyprostate.com. Thank you. Justin's on the boards. Everyone working back in Phoenix. I really appreciate it. Also, I want to thank Church of Scientology Celebrity Center for allowing me to use their wonderful facilities and my 3 amigos. And I didn't get a chance to talk about Jeff, who Jeff is always funny, but we'll get into that next week. But I thank the 3 amigos. Go out. God bless you guys. Go out and get those PSAs and know your number. Nick Ferguson, Secondary Perspective, and we are gone.
God bless.
Take care.